And welcome back to Metro Morning Live. It is time now to present our segment that we call The Success Doctor. And here joining me is Dr. Eldridge Henderson. He is a program guide, keynote speaker for, listen to this, colleges, family reunions, churches, conferences, retreats, community organizations. He's also a consultant in education and in politics. And good morning again, Doc.
Good morning, sir. How are you this morning?
Pretty good, pretty good. Still sleeping on the bed of nails there, Doc, but I'll be all right.
Of course you will.
Yes, sir.
Now, let me tell you before we get into this.
Yes,
I just don't think you believe that you have to determine your fate by taking personal responsibility for anything you want to do.
Yes, sir.
So therefore, don't worry about what others have done in the past. Only think about what you're going to do for the future by that specific responsibility you're going to take to make changes in your life that's going to be positive.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Well, today, Doc, our topic this morning is a new change order for states and the federal government. And when we talk about that, which you alluded to a moment ago, should Americans be proud of the results of the recent presidential election?
Well, I don't think they shouldn't be proud nor unproud, if there's such a word as unproud. But I tell you, it doesn't make any difference who the president is. I've been telling people for at least 40 years that there are not going to be any significant changes for just a few people, and that's the people at the top. Individuals like us, of course, not going to have anything to worry about if we don't do what we're supposed to do to look out for our local interests. See, politics is really local, so you can control what you do on the local level, and if you get yourself consolidated, naturally you can have an impact in state government. I wouldn't worry about who the president is at any time.
Well, Doc, the president affects a lot of changes. I mean, you can appoint people to the Supreme Court, which can have a real effect on people like us. So he can make a difference in a lot of things.
Well, he can when you start talking about what he can do with his appointments. And that's exactly what's going to happen in the Supreme Court. But no matter what happens in the Supreme Court, even though they're going to take a conservative tone, you're going to find that they're going to be leaning towards more state rights. They're going to be looking at what the state and federal police can do as far as suppression. They're going to give them a little more latitude. So that has happened in the past. So that's not going to be anything different. You have conservatives, liberals, Democrats, and Republicans in office at one time or another. And you're not going to see anything different in 2017 to 2030 that has never happened in America. It's just cycles. You have to get ready. It's just like the seasons in the year. You're going to see change, good, bad, ups and downs. And if you don't take that personal responsibility that I told you about and worry about who is at the top, you're going to have problems.
Well, I'm worried about this one.
Well, you're going to have problems, sir.
Yeah, I'm worried about this one, Doc. Now, Doc, when you look at the trends that you see developing in the states and federal government through 2030, do you see any major trends?
Of course. Several. One will be a shift towards conservative independence, state rights, and our research shows you're going to find that a lot of ethnics going to be excluded from major decision-making positions. They will have a token or two on the federal level in some of these, in the cabinet position. They will get a few tokens that won't have any power on the state level, where they make them regional directors that might be covering 4 or 5 states at a time. But most of the big policies going to be made from Washington. It's going to take at least 2 years for things to start moving. What you and others don't understand, 99% of the people still going to be running the government. The same 99% that's in office, whether you have a Republican or Democrat. The only thing that's going to change generally is the secretary's position in the cabinet and maybe some regional directors. But the same folks going to be pushing papers. That's over 99% of the current bureaucrats and their supporters in Washington and even on the state level.
But Doc, even with, I know you're saying it's all the same, but the president can have an effect on other world leaders, like the president-elect has already angered some already. So you're saying that the president really doesn't have any?
Oh yes, I didn't say he doesn't have any, but what he did with the guys in Taiwan, I believe it's Taiwan, that's just normal, common courtesy for the guy that's trying to get a little input through the new president, Donald Trump, so he can work against China and get them upset. But you don't have to worry about that. The Chinese have a dictatorial government just like they have had for years, just like they have in North Korea, and we're going to talk about North Korea in a few minutes,
Okay.
you don't have to worry about Taiwan. They will never be fully independent, and they know it. And if they get too strong, China is going to invade that country or go through a process of assassinations to get rid of those leaders, and they're going to rule it. So they ought to be quiet and keep that semi-democracy that they think they have, and they'll be fine. Because you cannot beat the Chinese. It can't happen. There's no nation in the world that could beat the Chinese if they choose to fight.
Okay. See, we don't agree on a lot of stuff, especially the new person in charge.
Good.
Now, could you address possibly the changes, like in the change orders, like the Supreme Court? You address some of those?
Yeah, I did mention that earlier. The Supreme Court is going to be leaning towards state rights, of course, and something that's going to shock America. And that's going to be they're going to review and try to make some revisions in the abortion laws. And you know that the Americans have condoned and endorsed over 50 million deaths through abortion since that law was passed, I believe, in the 1970s. That's a lot of murders. And they are going to review it. They're going to have a lot of controversy, but they're not going to make any significant changes that's going to hurt the current law. But it's going to have a lot of people upset when they start reviewing it and looking at it.
Okay. Well, what about education?
Oh, education going to change. It's going to change drastically. One thing that's going to happen, and you'll see this in about 2 years and a half. The federal government is going to be looking at some policies to make some adjustments in student loans. Many people I know and you know are paying student loans up until they're in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. Their interest rate is high, and they're going to make some kind of adjustments there. Another thing that's going to happen in education, you're going to find that there's going to be two things happening that's going to be significant. One is they're going to have a new state and federal reporting system for education. They're going to put more and more emphasis on lower achieving schools, which will give the states, since the Supreme Court and others will be endorsing state rights, the chance to take over more and more low-performing schools and any others they want. Therefore, then they're going to endorse in a strong manner charter education so they can get the public monies, give it to the people that can't afford now to send their kids to private school so they can consolidate that new effort, and you're going to have a new regime in education. But this is going to be good because when people get upset, they're going to start forming their own schools, religious institutions, private institutions, and I'm talking about those people that are going to be excluded. And this might be a plus because when you get with the state and they totally and continuously underfund education, people will get tired, and you're going to see some massive risings, policy making, and some very abusive relationships with local, state, and federal government on the state level from leaders that want change because they're not going to like these aggressive changes that's going to take place. But this aggressiveness will not be as fast as some of you all think because there's something called a check and balance system.
Yes, sir. And real quickly, looking at military, what changes you see there?
Oh, you're going to see some significant changes in military. Spending going to change. They're going to increase the numbers, personnel in military. And you're going to find that there will be some imperialist moves in Africa, Asia, India, and Korea, North Korea. Just we call it ruffling up the feathers, where the new president and his aides will be talking big to those guys. And they're going to do some things in Cuba. They don't like the present administration, even though they worked with dictators like China and others for years, and only had a few million there in Cuba, right across from Florida. So I don't see why they've been raising sand about that. But the new thing that's going to happen in that military is where it's going to increase. They're going to build more planes. They're going to have more men and women in the military. And the shocking thing is going to be where they're going to put more and more minorities in the military because they don't have anything for them to do, but they're going to put them in usually, and this has happened in the past, in certain areas, like the Transportation Corps, cook schools, MPs, and light infantry.
They can't do that now.
They're doing it already, been doing it through the history of the American war.
Is that right?
I'm telling you.
Okay.
If you look at those units in transportation, cook school, MPs, and light infantry, tell me who you're going to see. The minorities of America.
Well, why has there not been an outcry for that?
Well, because many people that's in the military are glad to get in it, because there are so many that are excluded because of lack of education and criminal records. And those boys and girls that can get in usually don't know the real scope, and they get in where they can fit in and try to do the best they can.
Wow. What do you see in terms of local and state police?
Oh, that's going to be bad. Let's get back to the Supreme Court. Since they're going to endorse states' rights, and that's going to give the state police and the local police to be more aggressive in their, what I call, wheeling and dealing with certain groups like blacks, Hispanics, immigrants, and females. You see, they're messing with more females. This is going to cause some serious problems, because eventually you're going to have massive uprisings in various areas of the country, and that's where you're going to see some real bad news, where they're going to start using methods to destroy people that are trying to defend their civil rights.
Now, does all this fall under the new president?
Well, it is. Of course, it's just the trend. It's going to change.
But now you just said that nothing's going to change with him.
I didn't say it's not going to change. It's not going to change soon. It's going to take about 2 years for these things to change.
Okay,
but
well,
it's nothing but a reflection of the seasons. We have had this before.
Okay. Well, hopefully the 4 years will go by real quick.
They're not going to go by fast, Doc, because when you do this 4, there are going to be 4 more.
Don't say that. Doc, you want to tell everybody how they can contact you?
Well, I would tell you the same. Just call us at 601-201-1957, or they can come on over here to 1230 Raymond Road in Jackson, Mississippi. But I would prefer that they call first. We move around a lot. 601-201-1957, and we can help them change their life status and get rid of some of that fear they have in 30, 60, or 90 days guaranteed, because one has to take that personal responsibility, starting on the local level, to do what they need to do.
Okay. I need to get some sleeping pills, because I hadn't slept since election night.
Well, you won't be sleeping anytime soon.
Well, maybe the 4 years will go by quick.
Well, there'll be 8 more after then.
No, don't say.
The Republicans will be in office about 8 years plus 8. That's 12 years. And then they're going to mess up so bad the last 4 years trying to fix what this current president will be doing in 2017. Then the Democrats will get in and change the season just a little bit and promote 90% of the same things.
I need to take you to Vegas, Doc, because you kind of hit things on the head, even though we don't agree on everything.
Well, let's go to Vegas, Doc.
Yes, sir. Stay with us more about your morning live after the break.
Thank you.